Hello and welcome to a Cat Gone Crazy retro special. That's right, we're going all the way back to the 1980s to play Nigel Mansell's Grand Prix on the ZX Spectrum. It's one of my favourite games of all time. I've actually got it running here on a real ZX Spectrum Plus 2, which is going through an upscaler so I can capture from HDMI. The game itself is heavily letterboxed, so let's zoom in a bit. That's better. If you live in America, it's unlikely you'll have played this one, as the Spectrum, or Specky to use its affectionate nickname, was a very UK-centric machine. The game came out in 1988 originally, but it was repackaged for a re-release in 1989. So while this particular version has Nigel's beautiful semi-automatic Ferrari on the front, the car in the game itself is clearly a Williams. You can tell by the way it has cannon emblazoned across the back wing. It's classic iconography. This is truly a contemporary product from the golden era of Formula One. This isn't an arcade game, it's a realistic simulation, or at least as close as its creators Dave and John Looker could get on this primitive hardware. I readily accept it's visually very simplistic compared to today's games, but it's arguably the most involved driving experience you can get on this machine. Oh, of course, before you can actually play it, you do have to wait for it to load. This particular cassette tape makes some very idiosyncratic noises while it's loading, which are definitely fine to listen to and not likely to cause some sort of episode. But then eventually you're in, and all 16 of the circuits for the 1988 season are present. You start in Brazil. The driver names are all driving puns. I Never Spin-Off is my personal favourite, and I'm pretty sure he's Russian. You can choose different race lengths, go for a practice run, or jump straight into qualifying, which is mandatory and very easy to fail, which can mean you don't get to take part in a race at all if you can't make it round the qualifying laps. You get 3 flying laps in which to qualify after your out lap. Oh, and you have to use manual gears, there's no two ways about it. Spacebar alone shifts down, space and accelerate, which is mapped to A, shifts up. So if you don't change into first gear, you'll never leave the pits. This is probably why I always use manual gears now when I'm playing modern racing games. It's all because of this beauty. When you're driving, you have to keep the revs within the power band. You can go up into the red, but that does heat up the engine and uses more fuel. The number keys 1 to 4 are mapped to different levels of turbo. This even actually changes the timbre of the engine note, which I have to say is freaking awesome. Turbo 4 gives you incredible engine power, but you can definitely run out of fuel if you use that too much. Although just like real F1 cars of the 1980s, if you weave left and right when your tank's empty, you can slosh an extra litre or so of fuel into the engine. It's amazing. Fuel management is of vital importance, especially at tracks like Monaco, something that's only lightly addressed in modern Formula 1 games. By which I mean, if you run out of fuel here, you're actually out of the race. There's no crawling back to the pits for a refill. You only really need 5th and 6th gear for the actual driving, which admittedly isn't particularly realistic, but still, you do need to select the appropriate speed and position your car correctly on the circuit. Brilliantly, if you take a corner too fast, the car will spin. If you let off the gas and turn into the slide while you are spinning, you can get out of the spin, but if you hold accelerate, then the engine will just rev, and then you're out of the race. It's surprisingly nuanced, really. But I do want to pay particular attention to the spin animation in slow motion here. Look at that. The back steps out, around it goes, onto the grass where it bounces about before rejoining and powering away. Keep in mind that this entire game is stored in 128 kilobytes of RAM. That's as much as a small JPEG. I mean, you can even turn over the cassette and load up the 48K version, but if you do that, then you'll have to load each track individually from the tape once you've finished each one. It's still brilliant. It's perhaps a little easy if you've learned how to actually control it, but considering it's so difficult to learn how to control it, I'd say that's a pretty rewarding learning curve. In case you haven't guessed, I absolutely love this game, even if sometimes it fails to load right at the end and I have to start the whole tape all over again. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you'd like to see more from me, then check out my music here. This is a video for a song I wrote called A Storm Called You. And if you want more video game content, check out this hot lap from Spa on Assetto Corsa on PlayStation 4. Thanks very much for watching. Please hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you again soon. Cheers.